Good evening. I'm going to start off by saying that I believe that the new economy and the information age could have the greatest beneficiaries be the people of the state of Vermont. I'll also say that the state of Vermont also has the potential, if we're not intentional, to be left behind by that same innovation. My name is Matt Dunne. I grew up in Heartland, Vermont, which is just south of White River Junction. I went off to school and I came back. I served in the legislature, but I also helped to grow a software company in the 90s based in Wilder, Vermont, called Logic Associates. I then served in the Clinton administration as the head of AmeriCorps VISTA, where we dedicated our time to bridging the digital divide, which at that time meant those that had access to the internet and those that did not. And for the last 8.5 years, and until last week, I was the head of community affairs for Google, running the operation from an office at the top of the tip-top bread factory building in downtown White River Junction, Vermont. And through that set of experiences, I've seen both what can be done inside the state in affecting the changes that can happen throughout the world. I was able to see what happened when 6,000 people are committed to fighting poverty. And I've also been able to see how, by bringing the values of Vermont to a company like Google, you can make a real difference in communities all across the country and across the world. But when you think about the state of Vermont, you can see it in a variety of different ways. It is a beautiful place. It's an innovative place. With Dealer.com selling for $1 billion a little over a year ago, it had the largest software exit in New England. But we're also seeing another side of Vermont. And it's a side that is based both in our history, but in our difficulty in transitioning out of that history. Because Vermont, you see, has an incredible innovation past. We were leaders in munition technology. We were leaders in scales. We were leaders in inventing new kinds of musical instruments down in Brattleboro with the organs. And we were leaders in the best machine tool manufacturing in the world. And thousands of people walk to work every day in Springfield. And then from there, we continued that innovative process in a variety of other ways. The Job Bra was created here at the University of Vermont. It became a very successful business here. The cheese that's made at Jasper Hill in a cave that they created in a hillside in Vermont is now winning awards all across the world, all the way through to technology that continues, where the best optical lenses are made in Bellows Falls. And these kinds of businesses were able to be successful because of the connections that Vermonters were able to make to the outside world. At the time, it might have been rivers, it might have been railroads, and in some cases, it might have been our connection to the land, where we were able to get materials from farms that were nearby and be able to innovate and then get it out to marketplaces very quickly. But today, we have a different medium for communication. And having worked at a company like Google from Vermont, you think a lot about what is the implication of being able to have connectivity through the internet, something that you may have grown up with and thought about, but the change that is coming with it is profound and it's fundamental. And I want to share with you just a few numbers about the internet today. And I'm going to do this in terms of not years or days or minutes, but in terms of seconds. So the first is that there are currently 3,000 photos uploaded to Facebook every second. For those who remember what it was like when you took a picture and then you had to take it down to the drugstore and you had to get it developed and then you would hope that you actually got things in focus. The fact that this many photos are being uploaded every second means that the phone that you carry around actually has taken more pictures. The smartphones have taken more pictures than all of the other cameras in history. The second is that there are 52,000 Google searches happening every second. And that's because as the internet went and connected not only people's photos, but different people's websites and blogs, there needed to be a way to be able to navigate, to be able to find what you were looking for and finding that quickly. In addition, there is also the uploading of mediums well beyond something static like a photo. And so right now there are 8 hours of video uploaded to YouTube every second. Basically what that means is that if you started watching the YouTube videos that were uploaded in the last 3 months, from the moment you were born until you died at the age of 85, you would not be able to watch all of that video. That's an incredible amount of content that is being created not by experts per se, or not by people in studios determining what is good or bad, but by users, by anyone who believes that they have an idea that they want to be able to share, they want to share in a video mechanism, and they're being able to be uploaded and shared with the universe. The other interesting thing I will note is that I believe it was 3 years ago when I made the same presentation, it was 1 hour of video uploaded to YouTube every second. So not only is this a massive amount of information, but it's a massive amount of information that's increasing at an increasing rate. And then it's also about communication. And there are currently 2.5 million emails being sent or received every second. Some may have been sent during my talk already this evening. But this is about a communication process that is happening all the time and has nothing to do with where people are sitting, and their access to that communication mechanism is enormous. I'm looking at this audience, I'm curious, how many of you remember when you actually had to be worried about long-distance phone calls? Anyone here? All right, there's a couple of people here where you used to worry whether or not you were on the phone too long because you were calling long distance. When today you can video conference in real time with someone on the other side of the world for absolutely free. This is a huge transformational change that is taking place. It also includes the fact that there are 3.3 billion people that are online ready and excited to be able to be a part of that communication process. Whether it's being able to share an idea through a video, to be able to communicate with someone through email, or to be able to have an exchange through video conference. That is an enormous portion of our entire world that is on a seamless system that can communicate back and forth. And again, that growth has been enormous over a small period of time. I graduated from college, not to date me, in 1992 at the beginning of this graph. And here's where we are today. So the question then becomes, what does this mean in the world in a practical sense? And when I think about the ability for people in various places to be able to be successful, I think about it in the context of access to information, which as we've all been taught is about power. And when you have a setup where essentially through the internet we're able to connect computers together so that everyone has access through their small device to essentially the largest supercomputer that was ever invented in history, things fundamentally change. And I put this slide together, I like it for a number of reasons, but the reason I put it together like this is that it's been estimated that today a boy in Africa on a cell phone that was made 5 years ago has access to the same amount of information as the entire Reagan administration. And it's worth thinking about that for a second, what that means for good, what that can mean in terms of people who want to do harm, but most importantly, what that means for a democratization process. An ability for people to be able to communicate across great distances, have access to information. And in Vermont, this has a fundamental impact on our culture and on our economy. When I was growing up in Heartland, Vermont, my access to information was limited to the community that was around me, to the books that were in the library in my school and in the town library, and the books that my parents had at our house or maybe our neighbors would lend to us. And yet today, those kinds of geographic limitations for young people or people who are living in rural areas have almost evaporated. And the same is true for our economy. That the ability for our economy to communicate and to participate in the global marketplace is becoming much, much easier. But in that transition, as I mentioned, from the innovation economy of our past to the innovation economy of today, we're also seeing the problems of not being intentional, about thinking about where we should go and where we can go as a state. And those implications are quite serious. In North Hero, Vermont, where some of you may have been, a beautiful community up in Grand Isle in northern Vermont, 10% of the kids who go to that public school are homeless. In Bennington County, we have seen a 50% increase in the number of people in poverty since the year 2000, and that's with a population that has been going down. In the Upper Valley, where I live, and here in Burlington, we are seeing a housing crisis unlike anything that we have seen before, where the vacancy rates are less than 1%. It's considered a very healthy market for landlords if it's at 4 or 5%. So right now we're seeing the impact of that, the rising cost of housing, of people not being able to come into that market, even for jobs that might be there, much less driving other parts of the homeless rates that we have. And then in the Northeast Kingdom, where my ancestors are from, my mother's family all was from Newport and North Troy and Jay, they have seen chronic poverty and underemployment for the last 50 plus years. And in fact, it was my grandmother who did everything she could to try to allow my father to live outside of Vermont, and of course he came back as quickly as he possibly could. But these are real problems, and they're problems because we have not transitioned from commodity dairy and manufacturing to something else. We've had fits and starts because Vermonters are innovative types, but we have not made that transition. But I believe that we can make that transition. And it's because we actually have all of the difficult pieces, but we've got to do it in an intentional way that addresses these issues first, moves us through a transition period, and then allows us to realize the potential of an entrepreneurial ecosystem. While we do that, we need to also think about the issues of our population. And I sometimes get into trouble with some friends about what it means for our state to grow. But the fact is that in 1992, we had 50,000 more people under the age of 45 in Vermont than we do today. So unless we're going to start asking people to start leaving, in order for us to get to balance, in order for us to get to the place where we were in 1992, of folks all throughout the workforce, we need 50,000 more people. And the other very concerning thing is that in an entrepreneurial state, we've actually seen the number of business starts go down. And we are at the same level that we were during the recession. It's affecting our school systems, where we're seeing a decline in the student population. Those who are Vermonters know that that debate is now going on, and the question of whether to consolidate schools, which could lead to kindergartners having to commute an hour each way in some parts of our state. We're seeing an opiate epidemic, which is affecting the lives of Vermonters of all socioeconomic classes, but particularly in post-manufacturing areas, where people went from manufacturing to doing construction, to getting injured, to being prescribed an opiate painkiller, and then when that prescription ran out, went with the alternative that was on the street. And we've also seen that implication in dollars and cents, where our lawmakers are having to deal with holes in the budget because we have an economy that's not working for all Vermont, and is not working for all Vermonters. But we can do something about this. And the reason we can is because we have basic pieces in place to make it happen. And what I will start with is with essentially a stimulus package. We have the opportunity to do a bond to allow for $100 million to be invested in making our multi-unit buildings across the state more energy efficient. What you do is you actually front-load the dollars, and you use part of the savings and utility bill to pay down that bond over the next 20 years. Put contractors to work, make our housing better, and reduce our carbon footprint. We also can launch a microenterprise fund for the entire state to allow for displaced workers to get out of poverty by starting their own small business and revitalizing our downtowns. We also can become the telecommuting capital of the world, but that means that we invest in real internet, that we bring fiber to most of the homes in our state and allow us to be able to communicate with internet speeds that would allow for video conferencing and true communication, but it also means having seamless transportation by air and rail to cities both nearby and across the country and world. And we are strategically located. In fact, the triangle between Montreal, Boston, and New York is essentially the same size as the technology triangle in North Carolina. And if we look at it that way, we can be the place where you want to live and still access those particular markets. And for those of you who think about where people who want to come to be entrepreneurs, we also have those assets as well. We have magnificent downtowns and extraordinary institutions of higher education. We have authentic places to live and work, where entrepreneurs want to come and stay if they felt they could make it go. And the educational institutions that we have are ones that invest in research and provide a foundation for entrepreneurs to jump off of so that they can make a difference. And we have an innovation in ingredient which is critical to most entrepreneurs, which is we have the best beer in the world. So we have all of these pieces. And what it means then is being intentional about it. And this is a way that we can look at the kind of inputs that we can have in higher education, in seed capital, in co-working spaces, how we can think about it in growing an enterprise from the startup all the way to a size that is Vermont scale. And then understand that at some point that company may sell. And the key with that happening is the dollars and the human capital that come out of that company when that sale happens goes right back into our ecosystem. It's going to take incentives, it's going to take thoughtful planning, but it's going to be being intentional about where we can go as an economy in Vermont. And so with that, I would leave you with the opportunity that we have, all of us as a state, to build on the state that we love, to create the innovation Vermont economy of the future. Thank you.